Hello, I'm Paul Peterson. I'm the editor-in-chief of Education Next, and I have with me today Eric Hanushek, who is a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution. And he and I and some colleagues have put out a report called Globally Challenged, Are U.S. Students Ready to Compete? And in this we have a report on how proficient U.S. students are compared to other students around the world. So what we've done is we've taken the NAEP scores, the National Assessment of Educational Progress data, and we've linked it to the international data called the PISA data, Program on International Student Assessment. And we've figured out where the U.S. stands and where every state in the United States stands relative to where other countries in the world stand in mathematics and reading. And we're going to talk about mathematics today because math is the serious topic. And 32% of the United States students in the 8th grade in 2007 were said to be proficient in mathematics. Well, given that definition of proficiency, where is it that other countries in the world stand? Well, there are 31 countries that do better than us, 31 countries that are more proficient, and there are many countries that are 50% or more of the students are proficient. Japan, Switzerland, Canada, Netherlands, Finland, Korea are some of the countries where over half the students are said to be proficient by our U.S. definition of proficiency. So, Rick, is this a serious problem, or is this just a bunch of numbers?
This is a real problem. What we've seen is that performance on these tests is a good indicator of the quality of the labor force in different countries, and it makes a huge difference economically to have a better educated labor force. And what we found is that our belief that the U.S. schools are the best in the world and that we have the best potential labor force is just shaken by these data.
Well, we have all of this data state by state, and my own state of Massachusetts looks pretty good. About 50% of the students in Massachusetts are performing at this level, and Minnesota is not very far behind. So that 50% stands up to what the Canadians have, what the Swiss have, what is the case in the Netherlands. We're not as good as Shanghai in Massachusetts. Shanghai is 75% proficient, but other than with Shanghai, Massachusetts doesn't look so bad. But how's your state of California?
Well, California is an absolute disaster. 1/8 of the nation's students go to school in California, and California looks identical to Greece. And we have been having all these discussions.
In more than one respect, it looks identical to Greece.
Fiscal problems and so forth. But California has been identified as the heart of innovation for the U.S. with Silicon Valley, where we're sitting right now.
You'd think math skills that's where California would be about.
You would think so, but what we're doing is importing all of our math skills from abroad. That if you go to the Silicon Valley, you find that we are relying upon the education systems of other countries that send students here to our graduate schools, and then so far we've been able to convince them to stay. But that's not always going to be the case.
So what are we going to do about this?
Well, I think the answer is that we have to take seriously improving our schools. It's an economic impact that's much, much larger than the current recession and all of the things that we've done in the stimulus package to improve our students. If we could, for the whole nation, be up to the level of Canada, it would be worth perhaps $70 trillion in present value, and that's compared to a stimulus package of $1 trillion.
So if we could somehow fix our schools, we could do as much for the debt crisis as any other thing out there.
Well, absolutely. It's both the debt crisis and it's the concerns about the future of Medicare and Social Security. They look very, very different if we, in fact, have higher growth in the U.S.
Well, I think what's interesting about this particular project that we've just done is it's the first time anybody has really tried to focus in on proficiency. And we have the data. We have the official NAEP definition of proficiency. We've never just gone around the world and said, well, do we have too high a level of proficiency? That's one of the debates out there, is that are we expecting kids to learn too much in math, only 30% are doing it. Our expectations are too high. Well, when Shanghai can do 75%, when Korea can do 50%, Finland 50%, Canada 50%, it suggests that we really need to put our act together.
Well, other countries have actually taken performance in their schools very seriously, and we've traditionally just looked for excuses. We try to ignore these international comparisons first and say they don't matter, which is wrong. But secondly, we've tried to say, well, we have a much more difficult to educate population than these other countries. But in the report, when we compare white students with the average in other countries, we find that they don't do much better. And so it's not that we have a bunch of immigrants or disadvantaged students or what have you. Our schools just aren't up to world-class standards.
Well, tell us what you think. Our report's up online at Education Next. Give us your comments. Thank you very much.